Welcome, everybody. Lovely to connect with you on what is a very wet January day here in Devon. But wherever you are and whatever's going on for you, I hope you can take some time out now to just sit back and relax and listen and enjoy this conversation. And I'm expecting this conversation to be very rich, very informative, because I'm speaking to a very talented lady today, Eline Kieft. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. I'm going to introduce Eline in a minute, but just before, I'm going to read her biography to you so you get a bit of her background. So, on the homepage of her website, Eline describes herself as a movement teacher, writer, and mentor. But if you take the time to explore her website, you'll find that these words only hint at her varied trainings and experience. Eline was born in the Netherlands, moving around the world with her parents as she grew up. Having felt a strong connection to nature from childhood, Eline was also in love with dance from a young age and trained as a professional dancer, first at the National Ballet Academy in Amsterdam and later at what is now Codarts in Rotterdam. Her early travelling lifestyle instilled a fascination with different cultures, and after her dance training, Eline studied cultural anthropology and medical anthropology, and then went on to do a PhD in dance anthropology, studying contemporary shamanic dance as a modality for personal growth, empowerment, healing, and spirituality. Following some years working in academia, Eline left this world to develop her personal understanding and completed further training in shamanic studies, shamanic dance, and then went on to train as a Qigong teacher. Eline recognizes herself to have a highly sensitive personality, and she also lived with back pain caused by ankylosing spondylitis for many years. She brings the learning from these personal experiences, combines it with her extensive knowledge, and weaves all of this together with her deep connection to nature and spirituality to offer her clients a range of tools, techniques, and in-depth support, which perhaps can be best summed up by the term that she uses, embodied spirituality. Welcome, Eline. Really
Thank
lovely
you
to
so
see you
much.
and have you here.
Yeah, likewise.
So goodness, there's a lot we could talk about. There's many paths we could go down in this conversation. And when I was thinking about and preparing for our chat, a word kept coming up for me, and that was flow. And I've already said that kept coming up for me. And flow can lend itself to the way you work and what you do in many ways. But one of the things that I love about reading about you is these themes, these threads that have run through your life, that have flowed through your life, and that you have weaved together into a tapestry that's really unique for you, and that's what you're now offering to the world. And as I said, maybe we can sum that up in a term that you often use, which is embodied spirituality. So I thought maybe we would start there with that term. And I wondered if you could explain what you mean by embodied spirituality.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I grew up in a Protestant family in the Netherlands, and there God is very transcendent. Often they speak of the guy in the sky. That sense of God is somewhere else, but it's anywhere but here, basically. And then even when I was 8 or 9 years old, I felt something was missing, and I felt that couldn't be the whole picture. Because for me, the sacred, I experienced that so much in nature and in my own body. But that is quite taboo in most forms of Christianity. So for me, it's been this finding out about our very unique relationship with the sacred, which we can only be aware of through our bodies as antennas, as anchors, as learning places. So for me, Susanna Darling Khan, one of my dance teachers, she often used to say, the body is a landing strip for spirit. So that sense of our soul or spirit or consciousness, it needs a place to anchor. So that is what our bodies are, these vehicles through which we experience life. And then it's not just a landing strip for spirit, it's also a place for us to take off from and come back to. So for me, that sense of immanence and transcendence is both possible with embodied spirituality, which is a little bit different than spiritualities that want to escape the physical or material reality because we don't want to be here, or it's painful and it's the kind of the land of suffering, which is also true. I mean, we experience, we touch on that later, I'm sure, pain and loss in this body. So it is, how do we integrate that in, still in connection with the sacred?
That's lovely. And I feel that perhaps many people are waking up to this new idea of spirituality at this time. We are really coming to know that we are a part of nature, and that if we're going to look after our planet and our world, that we really need to recognize that we're connected intimately. And I feel that spirituality is really taking that journey towards the understanding that it's not about escaping from our bodies. And like you say, in certain forms of religion, the body's been seen as very negative at times, even evil, and something that we should try and escape from. But I feel that's changing, and we're beginning to really understand that our bodies are our vehicle for spirit, and it's how we express. So yeah, I really resonate with what you said. I love that. So nature's been a real big part of your life since childhood. And you talk a little bit about on your website some of the, I think you call yourself a wild child because you were so at home outside in nature. Are there any particular experiences you remember from childhood when you first started to really understand how connected you felt to nature?
Yeah, I think the most typical one is I'm an only child and I loved being alone and I loved disappearing on my parents. I would take out my little inflatable rowing boat and we had a park behind our house. And so I'd go on the park, in the boat on the lake, and I would try to row without making noise to really feel a sense of flow with the water, to feel that sense of being carried by the stream. And then I would visit little islands and I would harvest peppermint leaves or nettle leaves. And I had my little hot water in a thermos flask. And so I would make herbal teas out on the island with my little rowing boat tied up. That would just be my kind of blissful weekend activity.
It
So,
sounds idyllic.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if my parents couldn't find me, they were relatively sure where I'd be. Yeah.
And as you grew older, as you came into teenage years, when often teenagers we start to maybe move away from playing outside and being outside, did you still feel that love and connection for nature as you went into your teenage years and beyond?
Yeah, I think I was very lucky to then already be on this quite rigorous dance training. Not so much the classical dance, although I did try from a very early age to imagine specific like classical ballet movements as reaching for the stars or picking flowers or sharing something with the audience. But more in my later training in the contemporary dance, we had a lot of site-specific work, which would actually take place outdoors. So we would go into architectural spaces or into gardens or into nature areas. So in that sense, yeah, I remember writing a solo piece which was recorded by one of my uncles, again out in nature. And I think I was 16 or 17 at the time, and I made this sort of triptych with the kind of well, not progression or devolution of our connection to nature as humans. So
Mm,
yeah, and of course that was a 16-year-old perspective, so tightly,
yeah,
slightly romanticized, but that sense of
yeah.
playing with and being in relation with, yeah, even then the mystery
Mm,
is a
mm.
strong part of my awareness.
Interesting. So what about the dance then? You were quite young when you realized that you had this passion for dance. How did that come into your life? Or what was it? Did you see some dance or how did that happen?
Yeah, very gently with a friend who took ballet classes at the local school, and she asked me to come with, and I did, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And so very soon I took all classes there, and then very soon my teacher said, "Oh, maybe you can audition for the academy." And yeah, so
Wow.
very natural. I was even a little late for the year, for the entry year of my age level, but I could start later to catch up with my then
Mm.
10-year-olds. So yeah, it was that was also flowing really specifically,
Yes, yes.
suddenly, but naturally. Yeah.
And so you started with ballet, did you? Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
w- did you love that? I mean, ballet's quite different from contemporary. What were you most drawn to?
I think the grace and the technique, giving an expression to an already very movable body.
Mm,
Like it's never that. But some people say, "Oh, I could dance before I could walk." That was never really the case. But my body was just, even in a conversation, was
mm,
always in movement, and I was exploring. Even asking my parents a question, I would dive around the door in a different way,
yeah,
and so in
yeah.
that sense, it was honing that movability or that love for movement, and that is
Mm,
also what my work is refining to more now. It's really movement as first language. So for
mm,
me, of course, we need to breathe, and of course, we need to express ourselves verbally if we can. But
mm,
movement for me has always been this is how I learn, this is how I explore, this is how I touch the world and meet and be met.
mm,
And I think, I mean, I only developed that vocabulary later, but the technique gave a container for that, that then I wanted to escape again at some point, because especially ballet and especially Russian ballet is very rigorous, uh,
mm.
to the point, and you can't have
Yeah,
a hair out of place, let alone a finger out of place. So
yeah,
in that
yeah.
sense, yeah,
Mm, mm,
comes a different question of finding freedom within the technique.
mm, mm, mm,
But it's also wonderful. I mean, I'm sure everyone who knows a sport or an art really well, like if you're horse riding or skiing, it
mm,
matters where your weight is or how your relationship, in this case, with the animal or with the skis are. So these body techniques, they extend into our connection with the world, and I find that fascinating. Sailing too. I mean, that's a different thing because there's a big boat,
mm,
a big ship.
mm. Yeah.
But the mast and the alignment and how you feel the current and the water and the waves and the wind. And so
Mm,
these kind of material engagements with the world through body techniques have fascinated me forever.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
I'm sort of envious as I'm hearing you speak because I loved dance from a child as well, and I did ballet from age 3, and then all the way through school, even a bit at university. But then movement sort of went out of my life,
Mm,
um, and apart from you know going to the gym sometimes, it suddenly movement turned into exercise and something I should do because it's healthy. I trained as a nutritional therapist, so my key way of looking after myself was food, and I was passionate about everything to do with food. Uh, but movement sort of got
mm,
pushed away and, as I say, became more of a chore. And I haven't really done that much other than, yeah, a bit of going to the gym like a lot of people, other than yoga. Now, yoga is something I've done as an adult and have loved.
Mhm.
I would still like to be doing more, but I do that regularly. But I really feel recently my body is really calling out to move more. And that's partly why the word flow kept coming for me. Um, as I was thinking about talking to you today, because movement and flow, just I feel like my body is just crying out for more of that.
Mm.
And so when I hear you talk about how it's just been an integral part of who you are and how you've lived your whole life, I'm just thinking, oh, I wish that had been the same. But it's something I want to bring more into my life now, and it feels so important
Yeah.
to do that.
And I think that's a beautiful feeling of that stirring in you.
Mm.
And I know the whole, the exercise regimes and the shoots and get to the gym and it's good for you, and that is really not my philosophy. So to come from a place of joy, from connection from the heart, and then
Mm.
do movement that you love, whether it is walking or running or dancing to your favorite song or dancing with a partner or alone or uh,
Mm.
going to the gym might be fantastic as well, or rowing, or all sorts of different activities that are movement based that don't have that sense of, oh, it's time for my movement shot.
Yeah, I know. So
Yeah.
dreary, isn't it? Well,
Yeah.
for me, that sort of exercise is. I know some people love it, um,
Yeah, of course,
but
and it has
yeah,
beautiful parts to it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think
And
in this respect, it comes to mind, and I don't know because we started talking about my childhood and dance.
mm,
What my Qigong teacher often says is look at children and
mm,
how they, if even if they watch a movie, they're hanging over the couch and they're
yeah,
stretching their leg, they're seeing the movie upside down, and
mm,
there's something in our education or our maturation process that stops
mm,
us to move.
yeah,
And so, in that sense, I really love integrating the movements I learn with Qigong and I teach with Qigong. Give yourself a self massage when you're watching a movie, or
yeah,
when you're cooking. Bring some movement to your spine, and it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm doing my movement now, but just
mm,
why would we always have a rigid spine and straight posture and be symmetrical if we can in terms of
mm,
limbs?
mm, mm.
So yeah.
Yeah. That's so true, and I have been feeling just that need to, even if I'm sitting down, just to sway.
Yes,
It's funny. It's
beautiful.
like my body's just saying I need to do this.
Yeah.
Um, and interesting that you talk about children, how they just move naturally. They bound around and do you know the work of Katie Bowman?
No, no.
I think that's how you pronounce her second name, Bowman. She has written a book called Move Your DNA. She's written
Ah,
several books.
yes, I saw
Yeah.
it. I have read,
Yeah.
yes, I have read parts of that.
Mm.
I love the the concept. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she talks a lot about that, about when we're younger, how
Yeah.
we move all of our body,
Yeah.
we when we're sort of reaching down, we use different parts.
Or
Um,
backwards.
yeah, exactly. Skipping along. I mean, you don't see many adults skipping along, but often see children skipping along.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just like the movement in a child is just has to come out. It can't be contained. Whereas as we get older, I don't know, everything becomes a bit more controlled and rigid, and we often spend a lot of our days sitting at desks hunched over,
Yeah.
and we almost get stuck in that position. So I think, yeah, watching how children move is really informative, and perhaps a lesson that we can bring some of that back.
Yeah. And I also think not to be too hard on ourselves because it is really conditioned out of us as children. So there is that age where we still
Mm.
explore the world as magical and then sit still and concentrate. Those
Yes.
two are getting glued together. So if you're wanted to be taken serious, if you want to show you're paying attention, you need to do the carrot trick,
Yes.
you know? And again, that's one of the things that I had to unlearn in my shamanic dance training. That
Right.
says, how can we be really in relation and very concentrated while our body is moving? So
Mm,
the
mm,
one doesn't exclude the other. And in a way, I feel it brings more of ourselves online because there is,
yeah.
oh, I'm listening with the back of my
Yeah.
shoulder blades. And I don't
Yeah.
have to do it this expressive all the time, but like you
Yeah.
said, swaying or rocking, it's really good
Mm,
to keep
mm, mm.
as well.
I think you're right. I feel that I can concentrate better if I'm just moving even a little bit, just that helps somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me about shamanic dance because I don't really know. I roughly know what a shaman is, but I don't really know what shamanic dance is, and I'm really interested. So tell us about that.
So I can't say there is one type of shamanic dance. I don't even think there exists something like shamanic dance.
Yeah. Mm,
But if you look at shamanic practice as a way of connecting again consciousness with the animist and animated world around us, so the trees, the flowing waters, the boulders, the rocks, the animals, the wind, that through our mind we make connections with nature around us. And then, depending on the type of practice, it has different purposes. If it's meant to ask for guidance, for insight, for healing, to work with different health experiences as well. So, to integrate the journey of the soul, there's different ways why you can and would like to engage with shamanic practice. And then, so that's the shamanic part. And then the dance part, I'd say pretty much every culture on the planet dances.
mm,
And it's only in the West that we feel awkward about it. And we often need a little bit of help to let go and free ourselves up.
yeah.
But people dance to celebrate, to grieve, to build a house, to initiate young people into the next phase of their lives. Like dancing is part of the human expression, and I believe we've been dancing as long as we've been able to walk.
Yeah.
It's rhythmic, it is group bonding, it creates a sense of safety. It's really like on all sorts of levels of emotion and mind and collectivity in the group.
Mm,
Dancing probably happened before speaking.
mm,
So combining those, shamanic dance, I would say, is a way to relate to the different aspects of ourselves in relation to the different aspects of the world.
mm,
And it doesn't have to be woo woo or weird. It can be ecstatic, but it can be very subtle. It can be rhythmic, but it can also be really flowing or very still. So
mm,
again, for me, it is about training the muscle of our consciousness. So
mm,
a bit like you pick up the phone to ring a specific friend, you dial that number, or you do muscle exercise because you want to learn to squat. We have different approaches for different things. And for me, I mentioned movement as first language or movement as first exploratory way. It's like, how can we open our mind, our conscious awareness that life is in motion, like everything around us is in motion. And how, if we participate in that moving world, we are connected. We have ways to reset, to recalibrate, and to, well, I believe and experience, find information and inspiration and resources
mm.
that then can help us live a healthier or holier, not holier, but with a W,
Yes, yes.
whole, more whole life. Um, so yeah, that's what I would
Mm.
say. It's a bit of a long answer to
Yeah.
your question, but
No, it's great. And the key thing there that stood out is, yeah, life is motion. When something stops moving, it's dead.
exactly.
Because we are energy and energy is always moving. And so if I guess the more stagnant we are, and there are times when we need to be still, of course, but if we stay stuck in that, then we're not engaged in life, are we? We need to, well, to, I guess, to really fully engage in life, we need to get into that movement, that flow of movement, which, because everything is, even when we're as still as could possibly be, there's still huge amounts of movement going on within our bodies, and sometimes within our mind as
Yeah.
well. Um, and so, yes, there's always movement. And as we get into that and flow with that, then I guess we're really engaged, aren't we, with life?
Yeah, and so for me, it's like you can look at movement as moving different aspects of yourself, like for example, connecting body, heart, mind,
Mm,
moving in relation to others and the world, and then moving soul or moving energy, which is a bit more metaphysic.
mm.
Um, I wanted to say something when I started that remark. Oh yes. So it was like, oh, but you know, what use is movement really? So for example, when you said even when you're very still, you're still breathing, and lots of physical processes are happening. So for example, overwhelm or anxiety or fear are very common nowadays. So
Mm,
if you could imagine your breath as a moving vehicle to transform a particularly challenging feeling that you don't particularly want to feel all the time, so that you can breathe in and you feel expansion and you fill your system with oxygen and with qi and qigong, with the life force energy. And
mm,
breathing out, you consciously let go of anything that weighs heavy on your heart. So in
mm,
breath, you receive, out breath, you let go. And you can do that with any emotion, whether it's anger, whether it's fear, whether it is stress. And it's not, yeah, we can go into if that's an emotion or not. But so
mm,
for me, then the breath is the movement, and it doesn't have to get more complicated than that.
mm,
So it
mm,
is again switching on the conscious mind muscle
mm,
to apply a very physical movement that's happening all the time
mm,
to compost and change and alchemize something that you would like to transform, because it's
mm,
just nicer for you, for your environment, to do your work, to be concentrated, etc.
mm, mm. Yeah, that's so true with the breath. And there are breath techniques um, that actually teach you to transform those emotions through your breath. Um, I wanted to come on to Qigong that you mentioned briefly there, because um, if we're talking about energy, then Qigong is very much focused around how we move energy in the body, and how we focus on different energies. What drew you to Qigong? What first introduced you to it, and did you immediately feel that it resonated with who you are?
Yeah, beautiful question. Thank you. So it was in the first lockdown. We were
Oh,
all at home and our normal lives had stopped. And I took a course for starting my own business. And on the
mm,
course, the partner of the course leader was a Qigong teacher. So he brought in 5 half-hour Qigong routines as part of the bonus of the course.
mm.
And I was like, what? That in a way was, well, I can't say the course was very helpful too, but it was that
Yes.
was the piece that landed. And immediately there was the recognition, this is body, this is personal growth, this is healing, this is nature, this is imagination. So for me, all the things I love and all the things I'm passionate about, they came together in this yes, in this code, in this practice. And it
Mm,
wasn't long. I think it literally was maybe even just 3 or 4 days later that I found the teacher I chose to train with, Lee Holden.
right.
I was on the teacher training, and I think 6 or 8 months later, I was qualified and started to teach. I've been
Wow.
teaching for 5 years now, and I love every class I teach.
Really. So
Yeah.
you teach, do you teach online, in person, or a bit of both?
Yeah, mostly online due to where
Mm,
I live. If I have a chance to teach in person, I always love it. But yes, I give 4 classes in my membership every week, and they are different styles. So we have like a half-hour class is more meditative, that came out of moving with chronic pain and having low energy and fatigue. So that is a very gentle movement meditation, if you
Mm.
like. Then I have on the other end of the spectrum is 2 60-minute classes, which I call the workout for body, heart, mind. There will be flowing, calm, relaxing movement, but we also build muscle. We also challenge our breath. We bring the body in a
Mm.
little bit more.
Mm.
Um,
Wonderful. Okay, well, I'm absolutely going to be highlighting all of these under this video so that people can
yeah,
find all of
lovely.
that.
Yeah,
But just coming back to Qigong, which comes from the traditional Chinese medicine um, system, you said earlier, before we started recording, that talking of flow and blood flow and energy flow in the heart, that traditional Chinese medicine has quite a lot to say about all of that. And we agreed that it might be nice for you to just talk a bit about that,
yeah.
to give our viewers a bit more of an insight.
Yeah. So by all means, I am not a TCM, traditional Chinese medicine specialist. So this is what I've learned along the years. But one of the key things I believe I understand about Chinese medicine is when movement stops, stagnation happens. And when stagnation, for example, in organs and in joints and in muscles happens, then illness can easily arise. So for them, it's a real health care practice to keep the body in movement. Um, and I think the first way to chi, we have the energy that we are given at birth, and then we have energy that we can top up daily. And the first top up of energy is through the breath. So that is what we already spoke about. And then the second is through movement, and especially practices like oiling the joints. So even in Qigong, you have probably 4,000 different styles of Qigong, different bodies of work to approach keeping the body healthy. And one, just waiting, there's a plane coming over. I don't know if you can hear that.
Wow, that's low flying plane.
You can hear it, yeah.
Yes.
So I have an autoimmune condition on the rheumatoid spectrum, which affects the joints and especially the lower back. And so oiling the joints is one of the Qigong practices that literally keeps the fingers, the wrists, the arms, the knees mobilized. So there's lots of practices. And I keep being astounded by how many different ways we can actually move the body. Even with my dance training, I'm like, wow, this is a really cool movement. Oh,
Wow.
I feel my lower back here open and widen, It's so, yeah. I think that is so breath and then mobilization and then the blood flow. We were talking earlier before we came on about the role of the heart. And of course, the heart pumps the blood around, the blood carries chi, um, nurtures the whole body, nurtures all the organs. If you have cold hands or feet, if you sometimes get dizzy because your brain doesn't get enough blood flow to it, all these movements can help those. I don't say they're not symptoms as in themselves, but they can lead to symptoms, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
And then, yeah, so we touched on emotional transformation, we have the physical transformation, and then we also have the mental or the psychological or spiritual transformation. So these are really, in Qigong, we talk about the 3 treasures of body, heart, mind.
Mm-hmm.
They are Jing, the physical body,
Mm.
they are Qi, the heart body, and Shen, the body of the mind or spirit or
Mm.
consciousness.
Mm. Mm.
And what I really like is that sometimes the physical body can't move because we're hospitalized, we're in bed, we don't have energy. We can still bring the chi of the heart or the chi of the mind, and that helps our physical healing process.
Mm.
So it is like these 3 treasures are keys that
Mm.
unlock parts of ourselves. If we're really frantic in our mind, which lots of us are, we've way too many things to do on our list, we're fearful about things happening in society, can we bring the attention back to the mind, to the heart being rested in the body, and then so we can find ways to calm the mind down by opening these other parts. Yeah.
Mm. So you mentioned your autoimmune condition there, and you say on your website again that you actually dealt with pretty severe back pain, chronic back pain for quite a long time. How did you manage that? I know ultimately it was qigong, I think, and what else was it?
Ayurveda.
Ayurveda, yes, that really led to you being able to be free of that pain. But how did you manage as a dancer and someone so keen to move all the time? How did you manage with that chronic back pain?
Yeah, so this is one of the conditions that creeps up very early in your 20s, but it is initially hard to connect the dots. So
Mm.
you kind of think, I just have a bad back, you know, now I moved, I've got pain, I made a bad move, I dropped the canoe off the roof of the car. Oh yeah, now I've got back pain because of that. But then eventually I came to a point where I could literally hardly move.
Mm.
I could hardly sleep because of the pain. I had to push myself over to take a new posture in bed. And I really thought it was such a rapid decline. I thought if this continues, I'm in a wheelchair in 5 years' time.
Mm.
That was my fear. See,
What age were you when this was going on?
that was age 39, 40.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, and then so it is, that is also one of the things we learn pain, stop moving. You know, pain
Mm.
signals something is wrong with the
Yeah.
system. And so with this particular condition, movement is actually also for the NHS the first medicine.
Right.
So once I understood that stopping movement wasn't the answer, there
Mm.
are new ways to bring your body in motion with pain in a safe way that doesn't force, but
Mm.
that is similar to the oiling the joints, which I didn't realize at the time. But
Mm.
that bringing back a little bit of movement.
Mm.
And you probably notice if people who are listening are familiar with rheumatoid conditions or other bone conditions, it's worse when you're just waking up. So you've been in bed
Mm.
all night and you have to take half an hour or an hour to limber up again, or if you've been sat all day. So movement, regular movement, really keeps it limber.
Mm.
Um, and I was really lucky that my dad gave me, I think, for my birthday, an Ayurvedic consultation.
Ah,
And
that's a good present.
yeah, it was really nice. And so, with Ayurvedic medicine and with dietary changes, I
Mm.
realized for my condition, I'd been eating way too much raw food, and raw food creates damp in the system, and
Mm.
damp
Mm.
creates all sorts of stagnations. So,
Mm.
looking at again the condition from different angles, so that wasn't movement related at all, but food related. So, with a little bit of Ayurvedic medication, different food and diet, and movement, I can't say I'm pain free because every day I have, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 or 2 pain,
Mm.
not
Mm.
7 or 8 when I
Mm.
was 39,
Mm.
40.
Mm.
So I know it's there and it will never be healed because this is a
Mm.
chronic condition.
Mm.
But with these adaptations, I can live a really good life with it.
Mm. How was it using Ayurveda alongside more traditional Chinese approaches? Because there's lots of similarities, but were you able to fit them together?
Well,
And
I hadn't met Qigong then yet.
okay,
Yes. So
right.
I only had the Ayurvedic side,
Mm.
and Cornelis, my specialist, he got me into the sun salutations, the yoga practice. So that was actually my first way in. And then I remembered from my dance training, my Pilates practice. And
Mm.
then I started to connect like, if I get on the mat every morning, I have less pain. And gosh, that was a struggle. that sense of like, oh, I have to go to the gym. I always found excuses. Then I had to prepare for work. Then I had to wash my hair. Then I was late for, whatever.
Yeah.
But if I got myself on the mat and I did the practices, I had a good day. And so
Mm,
at some point for me, it became that it's not an option not to do it.
mm,
Point
mm,
zero. Like it's
mm,
I can't afford not to do it. And
yeah.
once I got that, I thought, oh yeah, I'll have dirty hair today. I just have to move first,
Dirty hair, but I'll feel much better.
Exactly.
So were you working with clients at that stage?
No, that was when I was
Yeah.
still working full time at university.
Okay,
Yeah, so
okay.
I had a job at a Center for Dance Research. So I was working
Right.
with movement and with
Yeah.
health and with spirituality, but not as a personal one-to-one.
Yeah. Okay. And so I'm imagining that all you've learned from having that condition and how you've managed to, really manage those symptoms so well. I'm guessing you bring a lot of that in with your client work now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm,
And I
mm,
have, yeah, people from all walks of life. I have a lot of healers and therapists, psychologists, people who work at universities, trainers, educators, um, yeah, who are looking at reconnecting with their body. And so,
mm,
not for everyone, there is a chronic condition on the map. Quite a few with severe overwhelm, burnout, several with long COVID as well.
mm,
Then we're
mm,
also looking at small lifestyle changes to manage overwhelm and to look at
mm, mm,
approaching tasks differently. And then I bring in my shamanic work, my archetypal work to also work with the psyche differently. Because
mm,
we are all so conditioned to work hard, to strive, to perform, to excel, to exceed, like,
mm,
and yeah, that can be
mm.
counterproductive to our health. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we talked a bit about the breath helping us to release emotions and keep emotions moving through the body and through our system. What, what about trauma and helping people deal with very difficult emotions and traumas through movement? Is that something you do and help people with?
Yes, that takes a little bit of a different context, and I prefer to work face to face with people, so we really have yeah, the skin tone, the closer sense of I can
Mm,
hear their breathing, I can see their eyes. Um, and I think one of the big things around working with trauma is that, in general, again, with this mindset of we'll have to go hard and fast, we dive in before we're actually resourced.
mm,
And so then there is this whole shit pit of trauma, and we don't really have the resources to hold that or let alone heal that.
mm,
So for me, it is the first key is to bring the energy back up so that people feel well and resourced, and we park the trauma for the time being.
mm,
And we do, yeah, those works of integrating body, heart, mind, and being comfortable in yourself, and starting to have that inkling of what's the word in English? Agency. So,
mm,
okay, I can, when I feel sad one day, I have tools to move through it. And once I feel confident in that, we take the next step. We take the
mm,
next step.
mm.
And then so, yeah, one of the techniques I do work with is called soul retrieval. That is
Okay.
a shamanic process. And in shamanic ways of looking at health and well-being, there are basically two things that make us ill. One
Mm,
is intrusion, where something outside comes in that doesn't belong to our system.
mm,
And one is loss or extraction. So something disappears out of the system
mm,
that is essential to us.
mm,
We speak of it in terms of soul loss, but for example, psychology calls it dissociation.
mm,
That often happens with trauma. So part of us leaves because it's too traumatic to stay in the body processing this event, or has very useful survival strategies to avoid it happening again. And then so slowly coaxing that part of us back to give it home again in this form, in this, again, looking for the word, more tooled up way of being where we can hold that traumatic event, which may have been a one-off event or recurring event. So we're coaxing it back when we feel resourced to receive it. It's
Mm.
a very different way of looking at trauma, I think.
How does that actually work? I mean, what practically do you do in order to coax back those parts that have been temporarily lost or
Yeah, and this is, I
okay.
think, really exciting that there are different ways of doing it, and one is possible to do on your own. And I'm thinking maybe we can include a piece I wrote like with a 6 or 7 step that you do in movement in a dance. And it's
Mhm.
almost like imagining like your soul as a gossamer thread.
Mhm.
And perhaps you have a sense of the essence of what was lost, like for example, innocence or joy or capability to act or something that's really specific, something that's more of a feeling sense. And
Mhm.
you're, again, like you're picking up the phone to your friend, you're tuning into that resonance.
Mm.
You're like a spider web, you're moving it back, you're inviting it back in. And then
Mm.
bringing it in and sealing it so that it stays with you.
Mm.
So that
Mm.
is a kind of a lightweight self do-it-yourself process.
Yeah, yeah.
If you would choose, there are shamanic practitioners who would do this with you, and then
Mhm.
they would make a journey to the spirit world for you and
Mm.
find the lost soul piece and ask it to come home. So there is a technique. Usually we use rhythmic drumming for that.
Mm.
Usually you lie side by side, so the person and the healer lie side by side, touching on the shoulders, touching on the hips.
Mm.
And you go into that as a sense of dream, active dream or meditation almost. And the shamanic practitioner does the work, but you stay present to it. So you might have your own imaginations or journey. And then often it comes back in the form of an animal. And then, of course, this is all cleared beforehand. The person asks permission to blow the spirit of the animal into your chest, into your heart, into your crown, and back in your heart. And that sense, it's like something is coming home in a
Mm.
symbolic form that
Mm.
might have been
Mm.
missing. And
Mm.
that is often a very empowering process. Yeah.
It sounds very powerful.
Mm.
Um, I can imagine that that can lead to great transformations and reconnections. Yeah, it sounds amazing. And but there are ways, like you say, that we can do some of this work on our own. That step-by-step process you've got, is that on your website?
I published it in one of the somatic practice journals. I'll find a way to share it with you.
That would be lovely if you could. Really lovely. Um, okay, so one other thing I wanted to ask you about that I picked up from your website. There's so much on there. You talk about yourself as a highly sensitive person, and that isn't just a term I'm using, you know. Um, it's something that has been recognized. I can't remember the person's research. I know you mentioned her name. Tell
Eline.
us a bit about what that means, that term, and how it's impacted you in your life, and perhaps how it's enriched your life.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, so the person who came with the term HSP, highly sensitive person or personality, is Elaine Aron.
Mm.
Um, and basically, she recognized that about 20% of all the population has a different way of processing sensory input.
Mm.
Um, and there are people, it's a bit like your filtering system is more sensitive, so more comes in and it takes longer to digest. And so I don't know the psychology or the science behind this, but it is about the ability to process things that happen.
Mm.
And I really realized I felt different in my first job where I was commuting. I think I was 20, 2:23, and I was aware of all the details in the train. So there was a window open, there were people on the phone. If I sat there, there would be less draft. If I sat there, there would be more sound from the engine. If I sat there, there would be sun. And I was like, is this normal? So for me, it
Mm.
would be really overwhelming after a day in the office, sharing a room with someone on a keyboard and on the phone. Like, so I started looking and I came across her work, and
Mm.
tick, I recognize tick, tick, tick. It's about, yeah, it's the gifts are very much about high sensory experience of pleasurable things. So like
Mm.
soft things or beautiful colors. Like I see the vibrancy and the richness of colors, like taste experiences. They can really be ecstatic for me, experiencing beauty, silence. Um, yeah, so there's a whole body of work on that. And I think nowadays it's a little bit easier to talk about it with all the neurodiversity. But
Mhm.
that is relatively recent that has come
Mm.
online. It's just brains that work a little bit differently.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and yeah, I think looking back, I think my mom is HSP and she recognized it in herself after I started reading up on it. Being
Right.
an only child in a two-parent home, wasn't really like a lot of noise, or so it
Mm.
really
Mm.
only dawned on me in that commuter situation where I thought, wow, I feel overwhelmed all the time.
Mm. Does it help when you're working with others, being very sensitive to everything out there? I mean, sensory experiences, like you say, sights, sounds, anything that's coming through our senses. Does it, your extra sensitivity, heightened sensitivity, help you in picking up cues and clues from other people?
Yeah, I think also because you're working with the heart, it's one of the characteristics. It's like reading the room. Like you
Mm.
can taste the atmosphere when you walk into a room. You're like, oh, what just happened here? Like you can read people by a change in their face, in their breath. And so yes, it does help, but at the same time, it's never the full picture. So I
Mm.
guess it's like anyone with a skill in any field, you start to get like, oh yeah, if you're an engineer, you might hear creaks in metal and you think, oh, we need to replace a joint here, or so it's just like your profession as well and your skill that you're building your experience with.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Um,
Interesting.
I find the hardest really in personal life, especially because with the ankylosing spondylitis, I can't always predict how much energy I have because that depends on pain, that depends on sleeping well, that depends on mental activity, on all sorts of things.
Mm.
So I can make an appointment, for example, to see my father and his new wife, and
Mm.
it feels all right at the time. But when I get there and there is a dog and there are more children and we're going to do an activity, and then I can really get overwhelmed. And
Yeah.
that's not even the problem because it's lovely to be with them and go in the flow of their family, and but it's the communication and the not wanting to let people down and the having to explain, but you normally like this kind of things, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I do, but it's too much right now. And that for me is the edge.
Mm. 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 Have you
Um,
found it easier as time's gone on and you've really come to recognize this is a, an aspect to you? Have you found it easier to explain to others when
Well, it's
life goes?
interesting that I
Yeah.
am more outspoken about it now because I recognize it just as a quirk that is part
Mm.
of who I am and that I need to be transparent about to stay healthy, but also clear with others. And
Mm.
even last year, I lost a temporary job contract because of this, because normally I don't really speak about this. And
Mm.
I just make sure in my personal time that I have the resources to attend to my responsibilities. So I have a meeting, I know how much time I need downtime before, or relaxation time, or integration time after, so I'm a really careful planner, but it doesn't work out like that all the time.
Mm.
And then to be in a context with others again, how sharing people you're not so familiar with, having to be really clear in boundaries, like I have to stop at 8 and I
Mm.
need a quiet house at 10. And
mm,
that is not a normal request, apparently.
mm, mm, mm,
So again, it's more in the sort of interpersonal that it then becomes an issue rather than that it's an issue in my
mm,
life here or in my work with clients, if that makes
mm.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it does totally, and it's a lot of it's resonating. I was wondering whether you feel there's a link between the highly sensitive personality and the autoimmune condition.
I don't know.
Mm.
I never really thread those things together as in like some things also just happen. But
Mm,
I do recognize I have a different tolerance for pain, for example,
mm,
if I have low energy.
mm,
So sometimes I've got a bit of a headache, but you can bear it. And sometimes it's just the thing that knacks you.
mm,
So I think that in combination with a chronic pain condition and the HSP, it
mm,
aggravates sometimes, as in like
mm,
I just need to be extra careful to keep stress low.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
I think we all need to, whether we feel we're a highly sensitive person or not, there's so much
Yeah.
stress, and many people are overwhelmed
Yeah.
at the moment. I think we all need to think about how we manage that. Um, I personally have a tendency towards autoimmune. I haven't looked in. I've read a bit about the highly sensitive personality, but haven't really looked into it and um, thought about whether that is myself. But definitely got a tendency towards autoimmune. I've had thyroid, Hashimoto's in the past, but and so when I read on your website, and I'm just going to try and get this up now, I hope I can find it. There was something you said, and it really struck me. Where is it?
Was it
Um,
something I said?
sorry.
Was it something I said?
Yes, it was about because yes, it's here. You've mentioned resources quite a lot.
Hmm.
So I wanted to hone in on this. And what you've said on your website is and this was when you were talking about your chronic back issue. You've said that that experience has motivated you to help others with chronic conditions to get back in the driver's seat
Hmm.
through nourishing practices, strong boundaries, and regular resourcing.
Hmm.
And those three things really resonated with me. I know myself that I can get overwhelmed, and boundaries are absolutely essential in order to manage that, to be able to nourish ourselves deeply, and that takes time and effort, and it can take learning about our particular bodies and what we need as individuals. um, it's not just nourishing with food, but it's about getting enough rest and sleep and movement. So nourishing in all ways, the boundaries, and then the resourcing. I would like to talk a bit more about that. As we sort of move towards the end of our discussion, I'd like to talk about resourcing, and maybe you can leave our viewers with a few little ideas on some of the key resources you feel are important, particularly around movement, but maybe other things too. So can you talk a little bit about resourcing and what people may be able to do to support themselves?
I can't remember now if this was part of our pre-unrecorded part, but at some point we spoke about the joy and having joy to do specific things.
Mm-hmm.
So not going to the gym because you have to, but if you enjoy going to the gym, by all means, love it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think resourcing for me it's also the metaphysical word of the source and resource. So I see it both as a well of filling up, resourcing ourselves, very connected to water and flow, but
Mm-hmm.
also as our connection to source and mystery. And how can we dip into that awareness?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the time I feel if there would be a problem that many of us experience, is disconnection. Disconnection from our bodies, from ourselves, from who we are becoming, disconnection from others, from nature, you name it, some sense of disconnect. And so the resourcing, it's like getting back in touch with what matters to you. And I can't say for you what that means. But that is, like Joseph Campbell said, follow the bliss, follow
Mm.
what gives you joy. So I think if that is silence or journaling or taking your dog for a walk or playing with your children, it doesn't really matter. But it fills up your tank. That is really the key.
Mm.
And I'm just thinking it keeps coming in, so I'm going to share it. There is one particular point under the feet. It's called the
Okay.
bubbling springs. And
Right.
I don't know, can't really show it here, but if you curl your toes, you have
Yes.
a little dimple just underneath the ball of the foot.
Okay. Yeah.
That is the point. It's quite central in the foot, just underneath.
Yes. Yes.
Called the bubbling springs, and it is
Hmm.
the start of the kidney meridian. And the kidney
Right.
meridian, the kidneys are seen as the batteries of the body. So even though the point is on the feet, it runs through, it really is like a river of energy running through your batteries
Mm.
and resourcing. And I love that idea of connecting perhaps with an image of a source or a well that you know in real life. Like I lived in
Mm.
Cornwall, there were loads of sacred wells.
Hmm.
That sense of earth, water bubbling up from the earth, connecting with that point under your feet, which you can massage if you're seated. Take your thumbs
Hmm.
to your feet.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then if you're standing, invite that sense of flow up through the legs, up through the pelvis, into the spine, even flowing out the arms if you like. You can become this fountain of bubbling water, cleaning, healthy,
Mm.
life-giving water. So that is a very simple movement,
Mm.
imagination practice to connect
Mm.
the energy point underneath the feet with that sense of, yeah, life and flow and water.
Mm. How beautiful, and what a lovely way, simple way to
Hmm.
just remind ourselves to fill up with what we need. And I think many of us can feel guilty sometimes for spending time doing things that we really enjoy just because we can. But we need to, and we're all so busy. We've all got stresses and deadlines, but to just take time out to focus on things that bring us real joy, whatever it is, like you say, different for different people. That is so incredibly healing. I feel that, more than, perhaps what we eat or how we move or any of those things that are all incredibly important as well. I think doing things that we love and following our bliss, like you say, regularly. You use
Yes.
that word regular, and I think that's key. Not just once a month, more
Yes.
regularly than that. I
And I
think
think it's
vital.
also to add to that, it is finding your rhythm in that regularity. And that
Mm,
is also how we are all different. So,
mm,
for example, you might be a person who needs half an hour 3 times a day. And you need
mm,
some time to yourself when waking up,
mm,
sometimes when you're digesting lunch, and sometime before you go to bed. And that might feel like a lot, might feel like a little, but that is your rhythm. And maybe you're someone who says, well, actually, if I have a Saturday off every 3 weeks, it's enough, you know.
mm.
But that
Yeah.
that is that sense of what is your rhythm to
Mm,
return to source or resource, to
mm,
take that moment of like, what is actually nourishing me here?
mm, mm,
Just, and yeah, if it is a minute a day or a day a week. I have a friend who does one retreat week a year because she has a very
right.
busy family and she says, I have to have that week and then I can, hold the rest of the year.
Mm,
So that
mm,
is your rhythm. And so that is, we all cycle differently. Again,
mm.
that is ours to
And
find.
our needs change as well. Sometimes we need more, other times
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
can manage with less, but it is about finding
Yeah.
that rhythm that's right for us, isn't it? But that little technique you gave, I think, is really beautiful and so simple. We can all find time in the day to just give our feet a little massage, connect to the earth, and just imagine that flow of energy, that flow of water, whatever coming up, filling our body. That's a really lovely image, and it's lovely, isn't it, to combine image with movement.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Again, another doorway into your experience.
yeah. So, Elena, thank you for all you've shared. It's been wonderful, and I knew it would be. I want to direct people to your website. So could you just tell us the website address? I will put it underneath, but if you could just...
Yeah, that's a little tricky because it's my very Dutch name. I'll
Oh,
I can spell it, or we can just put it underneath.
we'll put it underneath.
Yeah.
But it's basically yourname.com,
Yeah,
I think, isn't it?
that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yes.
And I was thinking also as a thank you for you and for those who have been watching, I have a flow that is free for cultivating kindness and compassion, just
Ah,
about the heart.
right.
And I have a self-care toolkit for overwhelm, which is also free, so we can have a few tasters for people who'd like
Yes.
to
So I
explore.
can put the links for those, can I?
Yeah,
Wonderful. Okay, so they will be below this video.
yeah.
And there
And
is so much on your website. I mean, there's webinars you can sign up to, there's courses, there's qigong flow exercises, a whole load. So I really encourage people to go and have a look at your website. And you do one-to-one work, don't you? So
yes, absolutely. I work with
get in touch.
clients usually between 5 and 10 sessions, so we have kind of a longer arc to work together.
Yeah, great.
That's online. So it's called the Pathfinder program, and it is pathfinding your way,
Mm,
pathfinding your way to being differently in your work, in your relationships, in your health. So we kind of tailor make it to each
yeah.
situation. Yeah.
And you've also written a book, haven't you? Just don't want to forget that as well.
Oh, yeah, that is a few years ago now. That is called Dancing in the Muddy Temple, a moving spirituality of land and body. So that's really all we've talked about today.
Yeah, yeah. So if people want to delve into that, read a bit more. I haven't read that book, but I would love to. So I'll be ordering that, and you can order that on your website.
Not on my website, but I
Oh
can
no.
also give you a discount code for the publisher. And this is one of
Okay.
the, it's an academic publication, so I'm not seeing any of the revenue. So it is money that
Right.
you would pay to the publisher. But I
Okay.
have a voucher for you. I can put that
Oh, that's
in.
really kind. Well, if you can send all those links, then I
Yeah,
will
I
put
will.
them below this video.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Elena. We've touched on many things. We've come back to flow many times, and that was, as I said, the word that really stood out for me. And I knew that you would give us lots of different perspectives on that. So thank you. Really, really fascinating journey you've been on, but all that you've learned through challenges and but also your studies and the different experiences you've had obviously are coming together now to create something beautiful that you're bringing to the world. So thank you for that and for the work you're doing.
Thank you,
And
Liz.
I hope we'll see each other in person at some point.
That would
You
be
are doing retreats in the UK. I must just say that as well. There's one that you've got happening in Avebury
yes.
in the summer, isn't it? So people can find out about that on your website. And so maybe we'll get to meet in person when you're over. That would be lovely.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it already. Yeah, and
Good.
thank you so much for curating this beautiful flowing space.
That's a pleasure. Thank you, Elena. And thank you to all of you who've been watching. And I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. And I look forward to having you back with us at some time soon. Take care.